Hi and welcome to Eugene's Speech Therapy. I'm Sierra. This week I wanted to talk to everyone about the neuroanatomy of aphasia. So one thing that I've learned is that people who have a loved one with aphasia can get really involved in that person's care, and they want to understand what it is that their loved one is going through. Or if they have aphasia personally, they want to understand what is happening to them. I'm going to quickly go over some of the important parts of the brain related to language. I'm going to focus more on language, less on speech today. And I'm going to give you pictures and diagrams of where this is in the brain and talk about how it affects language. And if you know someone or if you have aphasia, you'll see where maybe there was a problem in your brain. There are a lot of theories out there as to how this works, how language is understood and made by people. This is my understanding of kind of where we are today. So there are these, quote unquote, language centers where certain things happen in the brain and you can kind of map it out and they're numbered. But that doesn't explain all of it because these areas aren't exact. You can't just take someone's brain and go, right there, that's where this is. They sort of bleed into each other. They're also connected to each other. There are these neural networks, and the whole brain is connected with these pathways, and those are just as important as the centers that we've created. It takes a whole brain to communicate. And by that, I mean you need cognition. You have to be able to remember things and attend, understand social situations and language. Vision is helpful. Being able to hear can be very important. So I just wanted you to know I'm not going to get into that part of communication, but it's there. Okay, so the first area we're going to look at is called Broca's area. Broca's area is where we see a lot of spoken expression happening. It is in the back part of the frontal lobe and kind of also comes over into the motor cortex. Speech is typically limited when you have a problem in Broca's area. The speech can be called telegraphic speech, where someone might say, open, hungry me, when they're trying to say, let's open up that bag of chips, I'm really hungry right now. But their comprehension is typically better, however, there are still comprehension deficits. Our next area is Verna Keys area. This is the area that is in the temporal lobe. It's necessary for comprehending spoken language. So when someone says something and you hear it, you need to be able to understand what they're saying. When you have a deficit in this area, you will have a hard time understanding language, and also your speech is typically meaningless. So while you'll have the intonation, you'll be getting all the words out, there will be very little meaning to it. Next we have the angular gyrus. This is right behind Verna Keys area. And it has to do with reading, copying written text, and interestingly also math and left to right concepts. So those aren't directly language related, but this can definitely affect your reading. Next is Heschel's gyrus, also nearby Verna Keys area. This is necessary for processing auditory information. So when you hear any sound, it's first coming through Heschel's gyrus. Okay, so that's all talking about the gray matter of the brain, but you also have white matter. And next I'm going to talk about the arcuate fasciculus. This is a pathway of dense fibers that connects around Verna Keys area to Broca's area. It's a pathway between the two. When you have a problem in the pathway, that's when you have something called conduction aphasia, where their output is pretty good. They understand most things, however, they are unable to repeat. So while their output is pretty typical. They may have some problems with anomia, but if you ask them to repeat something, they won't be able to do it. All right, next, and my most favorite area of the brain, because I think it's kind of mysterious and fascinating. It's doing a lot with language, but we're still learning a lot about it. It's called the insular lobe, or the insular cortex, or the insula. And it is kind of tucked underneath the temporal lobe. It's kind of hidden. It is associated with progressive expressive aphasia. It's very close to the limbic system, which, as we know, is associated with memory and emotions and things like that. There can be issues with semantics, semantic categories, syntax, and also auditory information. So one research study said, quote, "It's an integration hub for auditory stimuli." Another study also cited that this area is important for social language. Again, as I normally say, if these areas are damaged, either there was a brain bleed or a penetration or a lack of oxygen cut off via a certain type of stroke, then these areas can be affected. And it's clear that with therapy and treatment, a lot of progress can be made. So there have been studies that show, a tumor in the Broca's area, when it's growing, other cerebral areas start to take over for Broca's area. The brain is magnificent, it's flexible. The right hemisphere will take over for the left sometimes. You just have to give it a chance. And so speech therapy is critical in helping someone to heal who has aphasia. I hope this helps you to understand a little bit more about what's going on with aphasia. It's pretty interesting. Please subscribe, like, and comment. I put out a video every week on speech therapy topics. Thank you so much.